Hi there. I'd like to go over the lesson taught today, January 3rd, and this is lesson 12 in Unit 3. And today we talked about dividing unit fractions by whole numbers using diagrams. So, first of all, I want to break this down so we understand what's happening here. A unit fraction is any fraction where the numerator is 1. So, for example, 1/12, 1/3, 1/5, 1/2, so forth and so on. So in each of these cases, the numerator is 1. Now, the reason these are special types of fractions is if we recall that fractions represent division problems. The division problem that matches 1/12 would be 1 divided by 12, or 1 unit divided by 12. So one way we can think of the number 1 is as a unit. And if you recall from our volume unit, we talked about using unit cubes, and 1 unit cube looks something like this. Not the best drawing in the world, but one of these was referred to as a unit cube, and we were able to count unit cubes to find the volume of all types of different figures. So, an example, going back to our main objective today, an example of dividing a unit fraction by a whole number would look something like this if we divided 1/12 by the whole number 2. And so we used diagrams today to help make sense out of an expression like this. So an example using a diagram could look like this: 1/3 divided by 2. And the first thing I would want to do is draw my dividend. In this case, the dividend is 1/3. So if this box right here, or this rectangle I should say, is 1 whole, then I could divide this 1 whole into 3 equal pieces, and then shade one of those equal pieces to represent 1/3. Well, I want to divide this 1/3 by 2. And that's easy enough to do. I'm going to go across my 1/3 and divide it into 2 equal pieces. So, I've used a diagram to represent this expression here, but what does that equal? What's the quotient of 1/3 divided by 2? Well, in order to figure that out, I need to figure out the size of this piece here. If I can find the size of this piece here, then I have found 1/3 divided by 2. Well, if I think about the size of this piece in relationship to the whole here, I could ask myself, how many of these sized pieces would it take to fill this entire whole? And sometimes it might be a bit easier to answer that question if we divide each of the thirds by 2. Then it becomes easier to see that it would take 6 of these sized pieces to make up the whole. And 1 equal piece out of 6 is 1/6. So 1/3 divided by 2 is 1/6. And so on the Nearpod that's going to be used with this video, students had to solve different problems where we have a unit fraction divided by a whole number. using diagrams and talk about how different diagrams relate to each other, how they're similar, how they're different. And so this is really what we did for this lesson. To show you one more example, let's say I have 1/5, and I want to divide that by the whole number 3. I can again start by drawing a diagram, starting with representing one whole. Then if I divide my one whole into fifths and color one of my fifths, then I can then divide that 1/5 into 3 equal pieces. And then once I figure out what size one of these pieces represents, then I have my quotient, or the answer to 1/5 divided by 3. Well, we can see that one of these pieces makes up 1/15 of the whole, because it would take 15 of these pieces colored in to shade in the entire figure here. And so 1/5 divided by 3 wholes is 1/15. So going forward from here, future lessons will focus on solving problems like this. Situation's reversed. Now we're dividing a whole number by a unit fraction. And these types of problems can also be solved quite easily using a diagram. So for instance, if I have 3 wholes, I can represent those 3 wholes by drawing 3 rectangles, each rectangle representing one whole. And then I can divide each of my rectangles into fourths, and then see how many fourths make up 3 wholes. Well, since there's 4 fourths in each whole, and there's 3 wholes, this diagram suggests that we can multiply 3 by 4, since 3 wholes each have 4 fourths, to get a total of 12 fourths, meaning that 3 divided by 1/4 is equal to 12. So this is what we'll focus on in future lessons this week. I hope this video helps. And if you ever have any questions, please feel free to email me or message me on Remind.